Hello again. I grew up in the aftermath of the Second World War when there were bomb sites all over the place and practically every man I met had been in the armed forces. People like my grandfather had fought in France during the Great War and then rejoined the colours in 1939 as a member of the artillery who operated anti-aircraft guns. I don't think that I ever heard of a single person who had fled the country to escape the German bombing, and nor did I hear of any man dodging the column and evading military service. It really wasn't done. There was nothing out of the ordinary about this. Those in other European countries could tell similar tales. When men did travel from a country which had been overrun by the Germans, as many Polish and French men did, it was so that they could carry on fighting, not to escape danger. All this was taken for granted, and I dare say that older viewers will remember the same thing, that their fathers and uncles had all been in the army, navy or air force. This was par for the course. It was all taken for granted, part of the background to my childhood. Men fought for their country while their wives stayed at home and put up with bombing or their country being occupied by the Germans. I am moved to mention this because, of course, we are constantly urged to show compassion for refugees and asylum seekers. We are told that they are the victims of war and that we should welcome them and offer shelter to them. Forget for a moment the very real possibility that many of those claiming asylum are really chancers, economic migrants rather than genuine refugees. Let us, for the sake of argument, assume that these people are genuinely fleeing hardship, oppression and war. The majority of those arriving here and claiming asylum are younger and able-bodied men. If there is war in their countries, why are they choosing that moment to abandon the country? Why don't they do what British men did in the Second World War and fight for their country? Have they abandoned their mothers and sisters, wives and daughters, and left them to face hardship and danger, which they are too scared to face themselves? If so, what does this tell us about the characters of such men? Don't they care about their families or their own countries? I seriously doubt that my parents or grandparents would have jumped ship and left this country for good at any time during the 20th century, although they had to put up with situations every bit as ghastly as those faced by some asylum seekers turning up here. This is because British people are by and large loyal to their country and have an attachment to it. They will fight for it and endure discomfort, but they are unlikely simply to pack their bags and go wandering off looking for a better place to live with, which offers more opportunity. Of course, some people went to Australia and Canada, but those people didn't expect to receive handouts and be supported by those countries, which is all too often the case with so-called refugees to this country. My own psychology and attitude to Britain has been shaped by the history of my family. The knowledge that my father and my grandfathers thought Britain worth fighting for has had an effect on my own values, as had the fact that my mother and the other women in the family stayed in London during the Blitz, and that nothing would have persuaded them to run away from their homes. As I grew up, learning all this taught me that my country was worth fighting for. It instilled in me a sense of patriotism. I don't believe for a moment that Rishi Sunak, Suella Braverman or Humza Yousaf have that sense of patriotism towards Britain, or indeed any other country. The lessons learned from their own families was a very different one. In all three cases, their grandparents were born in India, but apparently felt no great attachment to the country of their birth. All left India because they thought they could do better for themselves in Africa. Their children were born there in Africa, and when they were older, they in turn thought that they could do better elsewhere, and so they came to Britain. No loyalty to the country of their birth, no attachment to any particular place. The children of such families born in Britain probably don't feel all that attached to the country of their birth either. Why should they be? Their family traditions are not like mine. Both their grandparents and parents simply cut and run when things didn't work out in their own country, and so they moved to another. It is my belief that this country means much more to people like me with entirely British ancestry than it does to the foreigners who, when their children have fetched up here over the last few years. I don't believe that even when their children are born here, they have the same feeling about Britain that I do.